Final, social science to tackle the IKEA effect. We talked about how founders' ideas could overshadow others' contributions. Recommendation 1 is to tap into the power of collective intelligence. Collective intelligence is kind of like the wisdom of crowds. You bring together groups of people and you ask them for opinions. And then you find out, you get all these opinions together and then you make a decision. A good example of this is from Google's early days. They set up an internal prediction market where they ask questions like, when would the next release of Gmail go live? What is likely to be the delay, if any? And they interestingly found out that the answers given by these people across the organization, even beyond the product team, the answers given by large groups of people were more accurate than what the product managers had estimated. And this is because of a variety of factors, because they see a complete other perspective and other aspects which the product manager may not be looking at. So that's why the wisdom of crowds, the power of collective intelligence is very important. But the wisdom of crowds works only when you have the right crowd. So if you have 10 people who think and act just like you, asking those 10 people is not going to make any difference. You need to build an open environment where diversity can thrive. Example again from Google in the early days of YouTube, when they were building an app for iOS, they were puzzled by something which was happening, where they found that 10% of the videos were upside down. And they were wondering, why would people record the videos upside down? The engineering team was puzzled by that. Eventually, they found out that these were the left-handed users. These are people who had to flip the phone and hold it and click the pictures, click the videos.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And not a single member in the engineering team was left-handed. So the complete team had missed it. It's a classic example of when you don't have a diverse team, fresh thinking, you could get blinded by so many viewpoints.
Yep. And as we know, that feels like a fairly innocent example now, an innocent thing to leave out, but you extrapolate that to things like race and ethnicity and gender, and there's actually been really serious real-world effects on people because of those blind spots early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And many of these start as, and which is why these are unconscious bias. Most of these are not by design, but because you don't have the considerations as part of the design, as part of the organization, the team structure, eventually when they impact people, they could have very serious consequences. And number 3, even when you have the right crowd, you'll have to foster a culture of curiosity and experimentation. So you need to tap into the wisdom of crowds, make sure you have the right crowd, and you have to make sure that the crowd can speak up and share the right viewpoints. And if you're wondering how could a bootstrapped startup or startup with little resources spend so much on experimentation, we went through this journey early on. In the first couple of years, we set aside some time as part of engagements to do some experimentation in projects. But eventually, when we looked at once a few years later, once we standardized our processes, we didn't have that luxury. We had set up very standard processes. So then, in order to experiment, we set up a labs team, a small 3 to 5 member team. And they didn't have the compulsions of delivering something the end of the month. So this was an investment we had done. And we enabled the team to pick projects, experiments, which align with the organization's vision. And from accountability standpoint, we set up an innovation accounting model, which is part of the lean startup, where in 3 to 6 months, we set a target that at least some of these experiments should translate into some commercial features of products, so that you have some room to experiment, some room for failure, but at least some of these experiments should lead to something. And 4 years back, we started a lot of experiments, and one of those was applying deep learning in areas like geospatial analytics and computer vision. And today, over 20% of our revenue comes from commercial projects in these areas, which can be traced back to the experimentation efforts about 4 years back. So that's how bootstrap startups with low resources can do it. And there are various ways to do it. You could have your own team, you could set up partnerships with other organizations, with universities, and there are various creative ways to do it.